Archiving started.
Okay, that's right, because it's just on the computer, it's not in the room. Okay. All right. I suppose we can get started now?
Okay. All right. My name is Erin Reddick, and talking about staying safe in the cyber jungle. This slide has contact information, so you feel free to contact me after the talk if you have any questions or want to get in touch with me. And so a little bit about me. I got my bachelor's in computer science and master's in information security from Georgia Tech, and I work there currently full-time as a research scientist at the Research Institute in the information security field. And so specifically, my work involves securing information sharing or information exchange systems. For example, you may know that in the health industry, there's a big push for electronic medical records and sharing those records so that if you change doctors, a record could be sent to the new doctor almost instantly. So, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and that's a part of what I'm doing at Georgia Tech. And I'm also, recently a new adjunct instructor at Georgia Perimeter here. And I'm thrilled to be at Georgia Perimeter. I love teaching. I work with Priscilla Dodge and Dr. Calandra Davis. So I really enjoy working here, interacting with the students. So about this talk. So staying safe in the cyber jungle. By cyber, I mean all things related to computer and networking technology and security. And these definitions are very informal. But security, is three different things. Making sure that only authorized people can read your data, preventing unauthorized modification to your data, and making sure your data is available. And by jungle, in cyberspace, there's a lot of things that can go wrong and a lot of bad actors out there that's trying to do bad things. So it's a jungle out there. So this talk is my personal reflections and experiences. So this is very informal, designed to be for the audience of not really having any formal security education. Okay. So I'll start with some basic vocabulary. Again, this is, these are informal definitions, but a vulnerability is a weakness or a flaw in a technology, usually the result of a bug in software. So, a bug just means something that wasn't done right. So all software is written by people, and a lot of times people make mistakes. When they make mistakes, it's called a bug. And all security problems, well, I guess I'll say most, I would say 99% are a result of vulnerability. Now, an exploit is a technique that takes advantage of a vulnerability. An attack is an attempt to execute one or more exploits to do something bad, to get unauthorized access to data. And a threat is someone that has the means, the will, and the incentive to perform an attack. And malware, malicious software that can be used in attack. So as I go through the talk, I'll probably mention some of these terms, and so I just wanted to introduce them to you so that they could be in the back of your mind as I go through the talk. Okay, so a little bit more about malware. I'm sure, I would guess that most people have heard of a virus or a worm, a Trojan horse, or a rootkit. These are all examples of malware, and I'm not going to really get into the specifics of each one. You all know who that picture is of? So that's Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, saying she gets into Oz and she's saying they're lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my! So viruses, worms, and Trojan horses. A lot of stuff out there, a lot of bad things, scary things out there in cyberspace. And this evolution of this malware has, malware originally it started out as just, that can cause corruption to your data or your system. You might maybe lose a file, or you might have to, reinstall your operating system as a result of being infected with malware. Then it evolved into stealing your data. So, there's malware that can search your computer for things like social security numbers or bank account numbers and try to send it back to an attacker. And the next step is there's malware out there that can actually use your computer to do things, maybe like send spam or do a cyber attack on another computer. And most recently, malware is a new type of malware that can form what's called a botnet, and they're actually recruit to enslave your computer, or it turns it into what's known as a zombie or a bot. And so imagine that there's a piece of malware that can infect multiple machines. And that malware, what it does is actually listens for a command to come from it's called a bot master. So there's a bad guy in a computer somewhere in the world, and he infects a bunch of machines with malware. And then he could send a command saying, okay, all you guys that have my malware, all you computers, go attack whitehouse.gov, or send out 10 million spam messages each. So basically has control over your computer, and that's a very bad thing. And so now we'll talk about some ways that you can protect yourself. So there's a war going on, right, in the cyber world, and a classic tale of good versus evil. And I mean that in like the Hollywood sense, not in the religious sense. Bad guys are the threats. The good guys are security professionals, right? People who are hired by businesses to protect systems, or some security professionals, they try to they target their information towards helping individuals protect themselves. And there are innocent bystanders, and that's everybody else, right? And the bad guys are winning, and that is, from what I could tell, a general consensus in the security field, and they have an edge on the good guys. And it's not because of technology. I believe that our technology is solid, but the problem is most people that use technology and the internet lack awareness and diligence in protecting themselves. So, I implore everyone to take matters into your own hands. And so if you remember the movie The Dark Knight, where the Joker actually sabotaged 2 ferry ships, and he put bombs on each, right? There's A and B. So the people on ship A had a detonator for the bomb on ship B, and the people on ship B had a detonator for the bomb on ship A. And the Joker expected that, somebody to hit the detonator to save their own lives. But actually, no one hit the detonator. So the people kind of rallied together to fight against the bad guys. So that's kind of a simple analogy into taking matters into your own hands. All right, so in protecting your computer, I believe this is the most important thing you could do is keeping your computer software up to date. And the most important thing is your operating system. So the operating system controls access to your hardware. It's kind of the heart of your computer. And this image is an example of, I use Windows 7. It's an example of a window that will pop up whenever Microsoft decides to release new updates for your operating system. And so I think it's very important to make sure your computer is updated, because these updates include often security updates that will protect your computer against new types of malware that has been created. And we're in the middle of an arms race in this security war. An arms race meaning, well, the bad guys, they're constantly coming up with new ways to do bad things, and the good guys they'll see the new bad things, and they'll create fixes to prevent the bad things from happening. And those fixes will manifest as updates that companies like Microsoft or Apple will put out there for everyone to use their operating system to install. If you know what a 0-day vulnerability is, I guess raise your hand if you know. Okay, so remember, vulnerability is a flaw. So a 0-day vulnerability is a vulnerability that's been discovered by someone, and they're the only person that knows about it. So sometimes, it depends, and it might be a good guy or a bad guy, but if a bad guy discovers a vulnerability in Microsoft Windows, Microsoft doesn't know about it, then they could do a lot of harm. And until it will take some time for the good guys to catch on and figure out, okay, there's a vulnerability being exploited, and they'll create a patch or a fix for it, and then Microsoft will distribute it as an update. Okay, so what else to update besides your operating system? There's, I would say the second most important is antivirus software. And if you don't have one running, I would suggest get one before you go to sleep tonight. And then, if at a minimum, just if you never had one before, just install one. Microsoft has a free one for Windows. You can tell it to scan your system, and that's just to make sure that there's no known security problems with your system. And it's important to keep the antivirus program up to date, because as new, like I said, we're in an arms race. Bad guys are always creating new malware, and the good guys are creating patches or fixes for this malware. So some of those fixes will be updates to the operating system. Some of them will be updates to the antivirus program. It's important to keep your web browser up to date, because actually, when you browse the web, you're actually, when you go to a website, you're actually downloading that website to your computer. And nowadays, there's a programming language called JavaScript, which is very popular on websites. Your browser is actually downloading JavaScript, and it's executing that script on your computer. So it's very important to keep your browser up to date, because if there's a security problem in how your browser is executing those scripts, then that could be taken advantage of by malware or attackers. And some other programs that important to keep up to date other programs that use the internet or data from the internet, because most of the bad things that can happen will come from the internet. And so these three, Java, Adobe Acrobat, and Adobe Flash, are three that I see, at least on my system, that's asking to be updated a lot. All right, so let me go back to web browsers. Who's heard of, knows about HTTPS versus HTTP? So HTTP is the protocol, or the way that your web browser communicates on the internet. And if you're using HTTP without the S, that means that communications are unencrypted and unsecure. So if someone can tap into the link between your browser and the website you're using, and they can see the data that's going back and forth. And for many uses, that's probably not a problem, right? If you are doing a Google search, you may not care that people know that you search for digital TVs at Best Buy. However, if you're going to be purchasing online, putting in credit card information or other sensitive information, like a password, then you want the communications to be secure or encrypted. And encrypted means the data is scrambled so that no one else can read it, except for the website. So, and with HTTPS, a website needs to create a certificate for itself. And then that certificate needs to be trusted by your web browser. And so normally when you go to a website using HTTPS that has a certificate that's trusted, you might not notice any differences. You might notice a little lock icon in the browser, or it will say, if you go to Bank of America, it will tell you the name. Firefox will tell you the name, Bank of America, Inc., right? That's the name of the business that owns that website. That's to let you know that you're really at Bank of America's website, right? Not at someone else's website. And certificates can expire. So basically, this screen is an example of what you'll see if you go to a website using HTTPS, and your browser does not trust that certificate, meaning either expired or it doesn't know of that certificate that the website is using. A lot of times, people, and this is a newer version of Firefox. In the older version of browsers, a lot of times it would just be a pop-up saying, well, I don't know about this certificate. Do you want me to continue, yes or no? A lot of times people would just hit yes, continue anyway. But that can be dangerous. So browsers got a little bit better, and now you have to read this information, and you would have to click, I understand the risks, because there are risks involved in doing this. Yes.
There's a question here.
Okay.
Martina is asking, you stated to update your system. However, the new update includes Internet Explorer 9, and that doesn't work with the school's iCollege. How do you suggest we update without including Windows Explorer 9?
I would try to talk to the OIT group at Georgia Perimeter, and they should be able to provide you with the correct guidance on how to do that.
Well, I'm using Firefox, and that seems to work with iCollege, but
I use Firefox as well. That's a very specific question about how Georgia Perimeter uses iCollege. So OIT you know the best answer.
To help that,
Okay. So getting back to updating browsers, a lot of times when you update your browser, that update will include the most recent, new certificates of popular websites. So when you install Firefox or Windows comes with Internet Explorer, it will already have the certificates for Bank of America, Amazon, and a lot of all these big popular websites. And so another thing to keep in mind is, notice the difference between the two URLs. So one says smithbarney.com, the other says smithbarney without the A. So sometimes attackers use this as a trick. They'll have a link that looks very close to something that's legit, but it's not. And it's very easy to make a copy of a website. So instead of the real Smith Barney, you go to a fake Smith Barney, but it looks like the real Smith Barney. But it's HTTPS that can help you identify what's real and what's not. So it's important to keep your browser updated.
I'm typing
the response?
Yeah, I'm typing out the answer.
Okay, I'll pause a moment. Okay. There are some very fierce debates you can find online about, which one's safer. Is Linux safer than Windows, or is Mac the safest? Or the second row are the four major browsers: Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. There are very good arguments for each one, why it's the safest, why it's not, why it's the worst. But I try to keep it simple and not get into that too much, right? So for everyday use, I wouldn't worry about all that. But I would consider this. The most widely used product will probably be the one that is attacked the most. Because the attackers out there, they want to cause the widest amount of damage possible, usually. So if I'm throwing these numbers out there, if 10 million people if 1 billion people use Internet Explorer and 100 million people use Firefox, then you could have a pretty good idea that Internet Explorer will have the most attacks for it. But it doesn't really necessarily mean it's the one that you should not use. So this slide is just to talk about that debate and to let you know I think all of these products, the vendors of all of these products I really believe that they're doing their best to make sure that their product is safe. And I would feel comfortable using any of them. So I personally use Firefox just because I'm more comfortable using it. It's not because of security or anything. All right. Now we're going to get into some the number one security problem that I think out there is social engineering. And I like this definition that's on this image. It says social engineering is the clever manipulation of the natural human tendency to trust. So it's attackers and not trying to hack into your computer technically, not writing malware, but they're trying to play you as an individual, as a person, as a human, right? Who they're trying to play against human tendencies. For example, here are two examples. And I'm gonna ask this question. So let's say you work or you go to school at a place where you need to have a key or swipe your card or something to get in, right? And use a computer. Now you're walking into the building and you look on the floor and you see a USB flash drive, 100 gigabytes. How many people would pick it up, go into their computer, plug it in? Right? Bad idea. Because most computers, when you plug in a USB stick, the computer will automatically search for something to execute. If there's anything, it will try to see if there's something on that USB stick to execute. So if there's malware on there, well, then you just affected your computer. You did it for the attacker, right? So there's no trying to hack code or anything like that. This was actually done at a bank as a test. And I don't remember all the details of which bank it was, but hopefully that bank got the point and they try to correct that problem. Here's a second bullet is how many people now walking into a building, right, that has secured access, and they see a guy with a janitor hat has a big box and he's fumbling for his keys trying to get in because, he has this big heavy box. How many people will open and hold that door for him? All right. That is dangerous, right? Usually, okay, probably fine, but people actually do that to get in people who are attackers, they have no business being in there. They will do this. They will try to play against the human tendency to trust. So I guess the point of this is when it comes to cybersecurity, you should really be really diligent. And we're going to talk about some more social engineering problems. Okay, don't get hooked. Attackers love to go phishing. Right? That word is a play on the phishing with an F. I'm not sure why it's spelled with a PH, actually, but a phishing attempt is to get you to disclose your personal information or get you to install some malware. And the two typical ways it's done on the internet is via email and the web. How many people knew this? 180 billion plus spam emails are sent every day. And that accounts for about 85 to 90% of all email is sent. It's according to Wikipedia. So can you think about it? How many emails do you send? You send an email, you got to type it out and then click send. But with spam, they'll have just one email template and they'll have a program that automatically send it out, maybe millions of times a minute. So, and then via the web, how many people have been to a website where it says, you're infected with this malware. You need to download our software to fix your computer. Don't do it. Don't do it. Or you've been to a website saying, oh, you are our 1 millionth customer. You won a free 52-inch flat screen or a free iPad. So that's a fraud. So look at a couple of examples of email on the web. So this image I got from smithbarney.com, and they have a section on their site to try to educate people about these problems. So this email says, we're highly concerned about the security of our internet banking users. In doing this, we periodically and randomly review all online transactions done via our SSL service. They're just trying to sound official. This is a completely fake email. The third paragraph says, you are highly recommended to take some time out to recover your account access using this URL. Now, so they're trying to get you to click on that URL. And that's going to take you somewhere where you have to enter in maybe a social security number, account number to try to, recover access to Smith Barney. So here's a couple of problems why this is effective. Is if you look at the first bullet, you can't trust the from address. So in this example, the from address is security@smithbarney.com. Just ignore it. You know, that can be very easily spoofed. I can send an email and change, and instead of coming from Erin Reddick at GPC, I can put whatever I want, and a lot of times it'll get through. And links and images. So, if your email client, if what you use to read email automatically is configured to automatically download images and use HTML so that the emails can look pretty, that is a potential problem because that way this URL says smithbarney.com, the real Smith Barney. However, when you actually click on it, it doesn't necessarily have to go there if it's using HTML. It could go to, myfishingsite.com, and you might not notice. And also, if you automatically download images, that can be problematic as well because when you download an image, you're asking some web server, some website, say, give me that image, please. And if that website is the attacker, well, then you just confirm that you are a real person that owns that email address. So they're going to put a checkbox next to your email address and know, okay, this is a good email address. I'm going to send them some more spam. So what I do is I don't automatically download images. So on a case-by-case basis, I look at the email and say, okay, I'll trust this email. I want to see the images, and I'll click download. And I suggest that you all do the same. Okay, so web phishing. Here are some examples I talked about previously. The first one, the blue background, is something that's trying to get you to download some program to get free stuff. I would say it's 90%. You will get malware on your system by downloading and installing that program. And also, you see warning, spyware detected. If you go to a website and you see that, just completely ignore it, close the window. It's probably a bad site. What Microsoft and Firefox and Apple, what they're starting to do is they're trying to identify some of these malicious websites, and they will, when you do an update, you get a list of these known bad websites. So sometimes when you go to one of those, the browser will pop up a window saying, we Microsoft think that this is a bad website. People have complained about it before. Are you really sure you want to go to this website? So the manufacturers, or the vendors of the browsers are starting to do that to help everybody out. Another reason to keep the browser up to date. Okay, so I'm going to jump to Wi-Fi. All right, so how many people have gone to Best Buy, bought a Wi-Fi router, went home, plugged it in, and started using it? No problem, right? That's probably a bad idea. Because if you can just plug it in and start using it, guess what? Someone in your parking lot can as well. I remember one time I left my house, this was before I had an Android, and I needed to get some information off my computer to know where I'm going, and I didn't want to go back home. And I was in an area with some apartment complexes, so I said, well, let me just drive in this apartment complex over my computer and see if there's a network I can connect to. And there was. And I just, checked my email, got the address, and then went about my business. However, there are people called war drivers out there that will try to do that, but then they'll try to do some bad things. They'll do illegal things on your network connection. And if the FBI, they're going to show up at your door if something illegal is done on your internet connection. So that's why you need to take responsibility to protect your internet connection at home. So step one, change the default password, because everybody knows what the default password is. I could have went and logged into the configuration site for that router and made any changes I wanted to. And step two is enable WPA encryption, not WEP, not WP. WEP has been proven to be broken for several years, and it's almost useless now. Okay, so the second major bullet, at public hotspots, always double check that you're connecting to the right network. So you might be at an airport, the gate waiting on the plane, and the airport might have free Wi-Fi. It might be the name, or you might be at Starbucks. let's say the name of the network is Starbucks. Make sure that you're not connecting to Starbacks, right? Because then, because there could be attackers. Some people do this. They go to a public place where there's free Wi-Fi. They'll set up their own wireless access point, and they might, instead of Starbucks, they might call it Starbacks. And people will connect to their computer, and they'll start going to the internet through their computer. Now they see all the traffic that you're doing on the internet. So you got to be very careful about that. And that second minor bullet there, just be aware that the actual connection, the link between the wireless link between your computer and the wireless access point is probably not encrypted. So don't do anything sensitive while you're in public, unless you're using HTTPS, right? Then you're okay. All right. So I'm going to jump to some mobile cautions using mobile phones or smartphones. I would recommend turning off Bluetooth if you're not using it, because depending on how your phone is configured, you can actually inadvertently allow another device that's close by to connect via Bluetooth to your phone without you knowing about it. And if it's, if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you're close to somebody who has bad intentions, then they could try to steal data from your phone. And the second bullet is configure a pin or a pattern to it's kind of like how if you use Windows or desktop, you leave for a while, you come back, it automatically locks. I would suggest you do that with your phone, so that you might lose your phone or temporarily lose it. If someone picks it up, they won't be able to use it because they don't know your PIN. Okay, so my experience is with Android. I don't have any experience with the iPhone, so this is about Android. And I would say don't go app crazy. Don't just blindly install this, the newest app just because it looks cool. All right, so with Android, when you install an app, how many people have Android? Does this look familiar, this type of screen? Yeah, the app needs to it asks for certain permissions. So Android is going to ask you to allow the app to have those permissions. And it's either all or nothing. So this particular app, maybe particularly dangerous things you see on here, like full internet access. So just be careful in doing that. So, and some apps just don't need full internet access. And I love it when I want an app like maybe chess or a game for my son to play, and it asks for no permissions. I'm like, okay, great, because I'm pretty confident that's not going to do anything bad. And when I say give the experts a chance, I mean, there are security experts out there who try to find security problems with very popular apps. For example, Angry Birds. So it took me over 12 months from when I first heard about Angry Birds to actually install it. And I remember harassing my friend because I wanted to play it on his phone and not have it on my phone because I'm just a little paranoid like that. That's just me. But I waited. I heard more and more about Angry Birds and more people writing about it. So then that gave me more and more confidence that, okay, this is a legit app, and that it needs the internet access to actually display those ads. If you ever played Angry Birds, you see ads on there. That's why it needs internet access. Yes.
Do you think Mac is the top of the line? Like, do you see any other computers better than Mac or Mac?
You mean just better in general? It all depends on your personal preference. I personally don't buy Mac products because, what? Oh, no, well, here's the reason. I'm a techie kind of person, so I like to toy around with the devices I have, and I feel like I don't have that freedom with Mac products. I feel like they try to lock down their products as much as possible. For a while, I think with Macs you couldn't buy just a regular old USB charger or something. You had to buy their specific charger. So there's little personal things that I don't like about Mac. That's why I don't use Mac. I use Android. I feel like it's more open. Coming from a techie point of view. But, you know, from a, I really think, though, Macs, people love Macs. So I think that they make good products. It's just not for me. So if you want to use Macs, then I think that's perfectly fine. So, and you know, I don't have an iPhone. I just don't want to pay all that money for an iPhone. Okay. All right. So we'll jump to passwords. So there are 4 factors. Well, I'm sorry. Does that answer your question? Okay. There are 4 factors of password strength, right? So if you want to know how strong a password is, you need to look at these 4 things. So I ordered this. This is I think is most important, is at the top, is the unpredictability, and unpredictability can be enhanced with randomness. But basically, how likely is it that someone can guess your password? Now, if I consider my wife a threat, then I have bad passwords, because she could probably guess pretty well what my passwords are, or get really close. But it's important to try to make sure it's not guessable. So don't use your name as your password, right? Or you can get really deep with how you create your passwords. But the second bullet is length. And I'll show you an example about length in a little bit. So basically, the longer the password is, the more secure it is. And I'll explain why in a little bit. The third is memorability. How easy is it for you to remember, or how likely are you to forget? Because if you're forgetting your password all the time, then the password is not usable. So, and the fourth is complexity. So you ever create a password and they say, okay, you have to use 1 lowercase letter, 1 uppercase letter, 1 number, 1 symbol. That's what I mean by complexity. And note that I put length over complexity. So now, the second major bullet here, let's consider these 2 passwords, right? The first is just Jaguars, right? Like, so if, and I don't know this, but I would bet a lot of people, if this Jaguars is used in a lot of people's passwords on campus. It's probably too short to be used as is, but that would just be my guess. If I'm an attacker and I want to try to get access to somebody's account here, I'm going to try to find a password that has the word Jaguars in it, personally. But Jaguars just by itself is a bad password. Here's why. There's 7 spots of 7 characters, right? Jaguars. 26 choices for each, because I'm using only lowercase letters. And that gives you 8 times 10 to the 9, approximately different combinations, right? Jaguars is just one of those combinations. Now, the most common way to a threat is going to try to find out what your password is they're going to, first they got to know what your username is, and then they will try, okay, let me try A. So that didn't work. Let me try A. Now, they're probably not going to, they'll need to have some access such that they can keep trying without locking your account. But that is, it's not impossible, right? So imagine that an attacker can try all these different passwords. And eventually they'll try Jaguars and they'll get in and they find out what your password is. That's a method that attackers use. And it's not them typing it out. They have a computer program to actually do it for them. So it's doing, hundreds, thousands a second. Now, the typical computer, this is a website I found, and I looked this up last night, so it's not on the slide, but there's a website that has a spreadsheet that estimates the amount of time it would take to find a password given the parameters of the password, right? So for a 7-character password with only lowercase letters, will you take a guess how long would it take the average computer from Best Buy to guess the right password? Okay, try less than 30 minutes. So about, I think it was about 28, 29 minutes. Because it needs to try almost all of those 8 times 10 to the 9 combinations. For about half of those, actually. Now, the second is a much better password. Let's go Jaguar. So I consider this a passphrase, right? It's multiple words. And I like to use multiple words because now my password can easily be longer and I can still remember it. And then to meet the regulations, you know, for you got to have one number, one uppercase letter. So, okay, in this example, first and last letter, I've made those capitalized. Use hyphens to separate the words and a zero in the front and 2 exclamation points at the end. So I got to remember the phrase and, you know, the little tweaks I did to meet the complexity requirements. Now, this has 22 characters, right? But now there's 95 choices for each spot. If you consider 26 lowercase, 26 uppercase, 10 digits, and however many symbols. And to find out the number of combinations, I do 95 raised to the 22nd power, and that gives you 3.2 times 10 raised to the 43, right? 43, now the important thing to look at is the exponent, right? 43 and compare that to 9. Now, if it takes about 30 minutes for a computer to guess Jaguars, what would you say how long it would take an average computer to guess this second password? Let's go Jaguars. You know, tweak. Any random guesses? What do you say? No, a little bit more. Well, a lot more. A lot longer. Getting closer. Try 48 trillion millennia. Okay? Yeah, each time you add one more character to a password, you don't just double. You like really grow the amount of time it will take to crack your password. So that's why I think length is really important. And don't write them down, especially at work. A lot of times jobs will say, they'll have that as a rule, you know, don't write down your passwords. And there's a reason for that. So I don't write them down at work. But I will, for my personal accounts, I will write down hints. So for this example, my hint might be, you know, GPC or mascot or something like that. Yes.
So it's probably not practical to have a password that's 22 characters long. I mean, you know, people just, it takes too long to type. So is there sort of an optimal length? Obviously, 7's too short. I remember reading that research that was kind of test about passwords.
Yeah.
And I sort of remember it coming in like in the 11 to 13 character range and being pretty robust password.
That could be, yeah, that could be robust because. That would still be, I think, a few years. Yeah, it would. Computer searching in order to. Yeah, it would be several years. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah. I don't know the particulars, but I think that's fine because, especially if you change your password often, then that increases reduces the likelihood that it'll get cracked. Yeah. My passwords tend to be about 20 characters, but then I got used to typing them out. I forced myself to get used to it, so now I can do it pretty simply. But I understand that, yeah, you don't want to type all those characters. So.
Yeah, I have another question.
Okay.
A lot of times programs give you the option to remember your password. Should you take that option, or would you recommend against it?
That's a good question. I don't think there's inherently a problem with that. The only reason I'm uneasy is because I'm not sure. I did a little bit of research into this, but I didn't find the answer. I'm not sure exactly how it remembers my password. Like, what does it do with my password? It's on my computer somewhere. So that makes me a little uneasy because if I get malware on my system, then it could potentially find that password. And it'll probably know where to look for it. Mm-hmm. So I do it, yes, I do it for like my Gmail account. I say, well, actually I don't do that. Well, what I do is I tell Gmail itself to remember me, so I don't have to put in my password. But I don't tell my browser to remember my password. I actually don't do that. Mm-hmm. But security is not the only reason. One of the reasons I do that is so that, like my bank accounts, is so that if I type it over and over and over, I won't forget what it is. If I tell you to remember, I'm going to forget the next day. So it's just a personal thing. So I answered, okay. There are, well, get to the next slide. There's actually standalone software that you can use to help manage your passwords. It's called password managers, and those can work pretty well. Okay, so managing multiple accounts. So this is just what I try to do. I will reuse a password for multiple accounts. It's less secure, but it's just easy to deal with. So I'll try to use one password for all my bank accounts, and one password for maybe my healthcare accounts, the other password for all my work accounts, right? So if my email password gets compromised, they don't have access to my bank account. And that's just from a usability perspective. But yes, it is less secure, but I think it's okay. Also, anyone here ever heard of OpenID? Okay, anyone here ever go to a new website service that they try to go log in, they want to create an account, and instead of forcing you to create a new username and password, they say, oh, you can just use your Google account. Everyone ever experienced that? Oh, you can just use your Facebook account. So that they're using OpenID, and that's, I think, a really good thing because it cuts down on the number of accounts you have to manage. I believe I do Yahoo Fantasy Sports, and anybody do Yahoo Fantasy Sports? No? Okay, well. They recently allowed, I already had a Yahoo account, but they recently allowed you to use your Google account. And what happens is you go to Yahoo and you click login, but you'll say login with my Google account. So Yahoo will point your browser to Google, you go type your password in at Google, and it will redirect you back to Yahoo. And Google will send a token to Yahoo saying, yes, they put in their right password. And that way, you don't have to give your password to Yahoo. You don't have to create an account. You have to just use your Google account. So I would do that as much as possible. Okay, privacy issues. Double check your social network privacy settings, like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. I need to go triple check mine as well. But most important, your contact information should probably not be public, right? So someone should not be able to search for your name and they get a little mini intro to you. They should have to be your friend, right? At least in order to see your email address. You're just inviting a whole lot of spam to come to your inbox. Now beware of what you post. For example, be careful about bragging about how you're going to be going overseas for 2 months. Because that information travels, and the wrong person might hear that. It's like, oh, okay, I got 2 months to break into his house. And do you really know who all your friends are? Do you really need all those friends? I remember something my wife started. My last name is Reddick, and people started requesting to be our friends on Facebook. Their last name is Reddick, but I know we're not related because they were. People of all nationalities and all races. And she started to say, oh, yeah, this would be cool. And I started doing it too. Oh, yeah, whatever. But, considering these first 2 bullets, I started going and deleting those people I don't really know because you don't really know them. Just think about it. If it could be an attacker saying, okay, make my last name, Reddick, and then let's see how many suckers I can get to show me their personal information. So just keep that in mind and use the circles concept. Like, anybody have a Google Plus account? Use Google Plus? Well, they have this concept of circles, right? So you could say, okay, have one circle for my work associates, one circle for my sports team members, one circle for my family. I think Facebook, you can do the same thing. They might not call it circles, but I'll take advantage of that so that, you, like really personal information, if you only want your family to see it, you say, okay, share this with my family. And you already pre-configured that list, and your, maybe a classmate that you just met yesterday doesn't have to see it. Okay. We got like 2 minutes. And,
Okay, we started a little late.
okay. All right. Well, I'll try to almost finish. Anyone hear about all this controversy around Google and their privacy? They consolidated, I think, over 60 privacy policies over their different products because they got Gmail, they got Documents, they got Voice, Calendar. They created a single policy, privacy policy. And what they're doing now is they're trying to consolidate user information across all these different products. So if you use, I use Mail, Docs, Calendar, Contacts, Voice, Talk, Google Plus. So now when I do something in Gmail, the Calendar app knows about it. This doesn't really bother me though. I'm not that much of a private person, but you'll see why it doesn't bother me in a bit. So on top of that, Google will read your email, and their policy says the employees don't read it. They have a program that reads people's emails so that they can provide targeted advertising. You ever plan something over email? Like maybe you want to go paintball, right? So you talk with your friends, okay, where we're going to go, I'm going to get this kind of gun, we're going to get this kind of gear, who's in, this for this date, you found this paintball place. And you ever go do a Google search and then all of a sudden you see all these ads on the side, sponsored ads for paintball stuff? That is by design because Google is reading your email and they're saying, oh, he's in paintball, let's show him some paintball ads. A lot of people are upset about that. I'm not. And, I said my wife is even less private than me because she told me that, because she's in the crafts. And so she's always getting these ads for Michaels and Hobby Lobby, Joann's Fabric. So she said she loves that. She looks forward to that because she sometimes gets coupons and says, okay, I'll get 20% off. And Google, they use those ads to allow those apps to be free. So I would rather not pay and have all this great functionality and, send me targeted ads. I don't mind. So it's possible that Google can grow and overstep its reach in terms of privacy. I don't think they've done that yet, but I think they are growing, and I think it is possible, but I think that they're being really scrutinized. So I believe that they're trying to be careful and not overstep their bounds in terms of privacy. And so I've recently started putting sensitive data in the online apps and started to, because I'm, I guess, really paranoid person, but I recently started using Mint.com and Google Docs to store some sensitive data and Dropbox. Because, like I said about Google, I believe that these are well-known companies that are worried about their reputation. If they don't want to do anything wrong, I could put them potentially out of business, And they're scrutinized by Congress as well. So I believe that scrutiny helps to keep them in check and make sure they don't do anything that they shouldn't do with your data. All right, backing up your data. I think, how many people use USB drives or CDs to back up their data? It's not enough for me because they could get lost. I will lose it. It's taking a month and I'll lose, and I'll be like, okay, where is that backup? I need it. I can't find it. Or it can get damaged and not work anymore. So, I started looking into cloud backup services, and I think they are worthwhile. So I listed some examples there, but I use Google Docs and Dropbox. And like I said, I feel like I can trust those companies because they have a lot to lose if they mess up. All right, so perfection not required. So I guess a little bit you heard me say, okay, it's okay to do something that's not the most secure because it's easier to deal with. So you have to find a balance in your life with how much security that you want versus how much ease of use do you want. But don't try to be perfect because it's impossible and it'll probably drive you crazy, right? So I once tried to have really, really secure passwords that were long and like random, have no meaning at all, no phrases or anything, and I just kept forgetting them, and it was just useless. So, yeah. Attackers usually go for the low-hanging fruit. right? So you don't have to be at the top of the tree in terms of security. Just don't be at the bottom. That's who's going to get caught, right? So make yourself an unattractive target. No problem. Just when I say make yourself a unattractive target, the things I talked about in this presentation are all things that I think they're pretty simple things that you could do to do that, and then you're not at the bottom of the tree anymore, right? Attackers, they would have to actually jump or get a ladder to go get you, and they don't want to do that. They want to do, if they can get someone easily, they'll try to do that. So, all right. So this is the last slide. Some conclusions. Take responsibility for your security. Don't just think that other people, Microsoft is going to keep you secure. They do what they can, but you got to take responsibility. And I suggest subscribing to at least a security blog that focuses on providing periodic tips, like did you know? So they might every week say, oh, did you know that you can create a better password by doing these things, or did you know that Windows, there's a new 0-day vulnerability for Windows, and make sure you update your computer. So those tips can help you stay on your game and being secure. And I don't have any recommendations here, but you can email me, and I can provide some recommendations. All right, realize nothing is free. Something claims to be absolutely free. It'll give you an iPad just because you're the 100th visitor is not legit. 99.9999% of the time. And you at least have to pay for things by enduring ads or similar things. And if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. And B, I'm very pessimistic, but at least be a little pessimistic. Don't just trust everything that's out there, right? Assume new content, right? A new website or a new app. Assume that it's malicious until you prove it to be otherwise. So, and treat it like defensive driving. You've ever taken anybody ever take a defensive driving course? All right, so I recommend it. It's a really good course because basically when you're driving, you're assuming that this person is about to switch lanes and hit me, so let me just slow down a little bit. Or, when you're about to, you ever drive up towards a red light and you know it's about to turn green, you kind of think about not slowing down. But that's not a defensive driving tactic. So when I say treat it like defensive driving, just assume that bad things will happen, right? And think about what you need to do to prevent those bad things from happening. Have a good reason for trusting software, services, or content. So, like I said about the new content, like a new app, don't just download a new app you just heard about from browsing the web. Try to, Google the name of the app, and there might be some articles about people that are using the app, or you might even find a security professional that did an article saying, yeah, I think this app is okay. So at least do something. Have some reason, something you point to say, I think this app is okay, and without just blindly trusting it. And keep in mind that, if a well-known company has a lot to lose, and you could probably trust them to do the right thing. Not always, but there's no perfect security. And 100% security means 0% productivity. So you have to find the right balance. And I hope this was informative. Again, you can feel free to contact me via email. And I hope everyone has learned at least, one thing. And I hope you guys stay safe. So, all right. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions? With college? Georgia Tech? Yes. But it's worth it. Hard work is always worth it, The hard work you put in here is going to be worth it. Definitely.
Tell us
definitely.
a little bit about what you're doing at Tech, to the degree that you're able to.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm in the security field, so in securing information exchange systems or information sharing systems. So, for example, in the health arena, there might be, all right, so in politics, the president and Congress, even past presidents, the president on both sides, Republican and Democrats, these politicians are trying to push to get these everybody use electronic medical records, right? And everybody starts sharing these records. So imagine that you might have some information at Piedmont Hospital and you might have some information at Grady. And you might want both of those doctors to have the same information, right? So you want them to share information about you so they can provide the best care. But you don't want them sharing information with just anybody. So how does Grady know what to do with your data, right? And then there's HIPAA. Have you ever heard of HIPAA? There's a privacy federal laws that these organizations have to deal with. So how do they comply with HIPAA, and how can you as a patient tell them what to do with your data? So that's kind of what I'm working on, is how can they do that? And that's in the field called authorization, right? What are people allowed to do in a computer system? So I use I don't know if you ever heard of this technology called XACML, XACML. Stands for Extensible Access Control Markup Language, where access control is controlling who can do what with your data. So there's I could get a lot deeper, but I don't know if you want me to.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. To protect yourself from. There is. I'm not sure offhand exactly how to do that. The problem is with something called DMA, Direct Memory Access, that your computer uses that so it can run faster. Security slows things down. So a lot of times, in my experience with that problem was a few years ago. I'm not sure if Windows has changed since then, but if you email me, I can try to get you more information about that.
Here's another question. If we find good peer reviews on, let's say, a phone app, is it safe to assume it's not malicious?
Well, so it's not a yes or no. It's a degree, right? It's somewhere between 0% sure and 100% sure. So when you first find about a certain app just by chance, if you go browse on the web, you should probably put it in the 0% sure that it's not malicious. Now, if you find those articles, then that scale goes up, right? So, and I don't have an exact formula, but by finding those reviews, you just did this bullet on this slide about having a reason for trusting software. So now how much you scrutinize the app is, like I said, I don't have a hard formula for that, but so just know that if you do install it, you're taking a risk, and by researching it, you lowered your risk.
But you could also say there are sites that are more trustworthy in terms of the reviews. I could imagine there are sites that plan fake reviews in order to get people to download that stuff.
Yeah, I think that if you Google for reviews, the most popular ones, the ones that can be trusted, will typically be at the top of the search results on a frequent basis. So yeah, as you start, if you've never done it before, so you're not going to really know. You're not going to have a baseline for what to expect. But as you start doing these reviews, you'll find sites that you'll find the same site over and over again doing reviews on a bunch of different topics and apps. So then you'll learn to trust that site. And then, but it'll take some time. So, you know, if you don't really have anything on your phone, like if I guess there's a chance that it's not malicious, right? Probably a good chance it's not malicious, but if it is and something happens to your phone, or it's not the end of the world, you can fix it. So, and you're gonna have to take a risk at some point. So, all right.
Well, thanks for coming out here today.
All right,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome. My pleasure.
And, yeah, I'm gonna
You're welcome.
this is gonna be put online. I'm gonna send out a link so we have recorded everything, and then students who missed the talk but were still very interested in it, maybe they can get to it later and see the recording.
Okay.
So, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Stop the archive now.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, it might be cool also for the course that we're teaching to one